Manila President Donald Trump boasted of his great relationship with Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte when the two met on Monday amid concern from human rights activists about thousands of extrajudicial killings in Mr. Duterte's war on drugs. Mr. Trump had praised Mr. Duterte for doing an unbelievable job in combating the illicit drug trade during a private phone call in April that focused mostly on North Korea. In that call, the contents of which were first revealed in detail in May by The Washington Post, Mr. Trump also invited Mr. Duterte to visit the White House. The two leaders met for the first time briefly on Friday at an economic summit in Danang, Vietnam, and were photographed raising wine glasses together in a toast at the opening dinner of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Forum on Sunday. Images of them appearing to be at ease with one another and, like other leaders at the summit, wearing traditional barong tag-along shirts, were published in Philippines newspapers. On two occasions during their Monday meeting, however, Mr. Trump declined to answer shouted questions from reporters about whether he had pressed Mr. Duterte on human rights. "We've had a great relationship," Mr. Trump told reporters, sitting with Mr. Duterte at the start of the bilateral meeting. "This has been very successful." He praised Mr. Duterte's handling of the summit and said, "I have really enjoyed being here." As Mr. Trump pivoted to talking about the nice weather in Manila, Mr. Duterte cut off the American reporters who tried to press Mr. Trump on human rights. "Whoa, whoa," he protested. "This is not a press statement. This is the bilateral meeting." Mr. Duterte at one point called reporters spies, prompting Mr. Trump to chuckle. "You're," Mr. Duterte repeated. A spokesman for Mr. Duterte said after the meeting that human rights did not come up, although the Philippines leader did raise his efforts in the drug menace. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders told American reporters that the two leaders spoke about combating terrorism and illegal drugs, as well as bilateral trade. Human rights, she said, came up briefly in the context of the Philippines drug war. She did not elaborate. Mr. Trump had boasted before his visit to Manila that he expected things to go a lot better than during the last trip to the Philippines by former President Barack Obama. Mr. Trump, however, appeared to mix up his references. Mr. Obama cancelled a bilateral meeting with Mr. Duterte in September 2016 after the Philippines leader made derogatory comments about him and the U.S., a longtime treaty ally. Mr. Obama's 2015 visit to Manila went smoothly, before Mr. Duterte had been elected. "I have a sense that he is not going to address human rights, largely because he is trying to build a relationship with Duterte. This 10-day trip is about building alliances in response to North Korea," said James Zasadias, director of the UCHCO Philippine Studies program at the University of San Francisco. White House aides said Mr. Trump routinely brings up human rights in his private conversations with world leaders, and in a couple of notable instances he has addressed the matter in public on his five-nation Asia trip. In a speech to the South Korean parliament, Mr. Trump called North Korea a hell no person deserves, and he laid out in sometimes gruesome detail the abuses Pyongyang has perpetrated, including purportedly killing babies and carting the bodies away in buckets.